we will hear today on this AML framework on the progress on the AML package. And it is important that we discuss because we all feel that there's a unique momentum. If we look at the incidents a few years ago, lessons were learned. And we will now have a regulation and a directive. And the regulation, of course, has as an advantage its direct implementation. So we hope to deal with fragmentation on that sense. We also have the unique opportunity to start a new authority, an AML authority, which, if the scope is right, if the competencies are right, if we have well-trained staff and avoid duplications, will add to our battle against the organized crime. To hear today and have distinguished speakers from the public sector in European Commission and Europol. But before that, I would like to give the floor to the chairman of the European Parliamentary Financial Services Forum, Othmar. Mr. Karas, you have the floor.
I think we can all agree that the status quo is unacceptable. Criminal proceeds in the EU are estimated at least 110 billion euros per year. This is around 1% of the Union's GDP and comes close to the annual EU budget. Our common goal must be to fight money laundering and to bring this number down. The European Parliament has always been at the forefront of this fight, be it as a co-legislator with its resolutions, debates, hearings, or missions.
We have recorded so many very serious incidents that I agree that situation really is not good. We experience the big ones like Danske Bank and smaller scales like revealed in the Panama Papers, or by just accident reports about relatives of ex-Soviet oligarchs possessing huge amounts of properties within the various countries of the EU without being clear what was the source of these purchases. I guess the problem with current framework, as we learned, is that overall system, the resistance of the EU against money laundering is only as strong as weak is the weakest point. So this is not about a statistic. Even just one country not properly implementing the rules, or one financial institution having a systemic failure in dealing with the money laundering problem, it puts under the water all the system. As the consequence, the money that are proceeds of criminal activities, corruption, or other things are going to be cleaned within the EU. So they finance the asset purchases. Very often they are buying actually influence, or they are supporting other illegal activities.
Regarding the topic of this seminar, of this event, the first thing I would like to say is that I welcome and endorse the initiative taken by the Commission in publishing this package of measures. Another phenomenon that has emerged also from the pandemic, as I referred before, are the cryptocurrencies. The closure of countries and markets has not meant the shutdown of the activity and the development of new ways to operate online, to buy digitally, or to reactivate interconnected criminal economic networks in different markets. This means that we are indeed facing a unique momentum, and I hope that the EU, the Parliament, and the Commission reacts accordingly. The legislative framework requires an agency that is capable of both supervisory and coordinating functions. This dual role attributed to the AMLA established an EU management policy model which will allow a faster and more precise operation. It would be the creation of this authority, the AMLA, is an opportunity for the European Union to step forward in a more effective way in the fight against money laundering. It's essential that in a globalized world such as the one we are in, there is an institution with the effective capacity to gather information, assess and monitor potential threats, and coordinate financial intelligence units.
First of all, obviously, the regulation is a very important step in the right direction, of course, because it will allow us to overcome the loopholes that are created through the different and even at different paces, the transposition of the EU directives. So certainly the regulation is a step in the right direction. It will provide us more clarity through the single rule book, which is a very important element of this new package, uniform rules. In the whole EU, it will be very important for the cross-border operations, and also bridging the regulatory discrepancies between our countries. That's certainly something that we commend as a whole in the proposal. We should push for the harmonization of rules in terms of our beneficial ownership, due diligences, obligations, cash ceilings, etc.
This state of play only underscores the urgency to act. And what is important, I would like to say from the outset, what was important for us in the Commission was that we had a very strong political mandate from both co-legislators, from the Parliament in particular in a resolution, a last resolution of July 2020, and we started from there. So the package that we have tabled, we think it is an ambitious one. We don't think that it is a perfect one, and we're looking forward to improving it. But we think that it is an ambitious one, and it replies to expectations not only of co-legislators, but also of stakeholders. We think that this single rule book that was called for and which consists of a regulation, the first one in this field, should go along with the discussion on the directive, because as you know, it was not the case that we could have harmonized everything when it comes to the single rule book.
It is, and that was mentioned this morning a couple of times, an excellent opportunity to ensure a comprehensive approach towards AML regulations in the European Union. Cooperation and the smooth information flow between all the stakeholders, and that was mentioned already as well, to fight money laundering and terrorist financing, including law enforcement, should be promoted in order to achieve good results. However, we observe that essential available financial information is currently neither shared enough nor used to its full extent at national and at EU level. Unfortunately, financial intelligence is not yet fully exploited by the relevant stakeholders in the EU. More than 90% of the suspicious financial transactions filed by obliged entities to FIUs have a cross-border dimension.
What really comes out of the discussion so far is that we all agree that fighting financial crime is important. We all agree that collectively we need to get better at it. And we all agree that we've now got a unique opportunity really in the EU to move the fight against money laundering and terrorist financing to the next level. What this now looks like is that we've got about 30 regulatory instruments that set out what AML supervisors should do and what prudential supervisors should do, and also, of course, what financial institutions should do to really tackle money laundering and terrorist financing risk across all sectors. Negotiations are, of course, or have of course begun, and having participated in several of these in the past, before I joined the EBA, I know that this means that the text will change and that it will change potentially significantly. And so as these negotiations progress, I think it will be really important that we keep in mind why the reforms are necessary, so that we can ensure that going forward the new law and the new framework deliver in all those areas that we have identified as causing problems in the past. So here I just want to speak about the degree of harmonization that's going to be brought by the new package to what institutions will have to do to comply. And from our perspective, based on what we have seen in practice in the single market, greater harmonization in relation to customer due diligence is absolutely vital. It's important.
It is important to recognize that there are differences between the accounting sector, lawyers and others, and banks. And I think we would still say that although we welcome it, there will be some challenges with a regulation, because the interpretation as it applies to the types of things that we do is going to be critical. For example, we don't want to go into the detail here, but there are a number of instances which talk about understanding not only where the source of funds comes, but also the application of those funds in a transaction. For somebody who's in the accounting function, we may not have our activity may not involve a transaction that moves money from one place to another. It may be doing something as simple as an audit or a tax return. And so some of the things that are obligatory within the current provisions may not apply to accountants. So I think there's an element around there of making sure that the rules can be interpreted and fit different types of businesses apart from just banks. And I think in relation to AMLA, having an anti-money laundering authority that is of such a size and such a scale, how will it deal with designated non-financial businesses and professions? How will it actually get that expertise to understand the differences and also the similarities? Because we're not trying to look for special treatment, but just simply to have our businesses understood, because without that understanding, it is not possible to have effective supervision.
I think the critical goal that we should all share is bringing together on the regulatory side and the law enforcement side and the financial institution side, because in the end, the ultimate goals are completely aligned, but we need to make sure that the regulations are designed so that the financial institutions are creating the information and a quality of information, not just a quantity, but a quality of information that's the most useful for law enforcement. The point has been made before that criminals operate across geographic boundaries. They also operate, needless to say, across financial institutions. And then, whether intentionally or unintentionally, when we have dispersion of information among the different participants who are trying to stop the criminals, that operates to the advantage of the criminals. When we consolidate that information and the intelligence and knowledge with respect to the modus operandi of those criminals, that operates to the criminals' disadvantages. When we talk about information dispersion, I think that manifests across several dimensions, some of which we've talked about, but not necessarily all of them. One is between different financial institutions. One is between financial institutions and law enforcement, or the FIUs. One is between the law enforcement agencies themselves, or the FIUs themselves. And then also, and we have not touched upon this, is information dispersion within financial institutions who have to navigate through different restrictions on information sharing between our branches, between our legal entities that are operating in different jurisdictions.